So thank you for joining us. For those that are currently watching and or watching at a later time, we're so excited to have another Facebook Live. And this month we have some of our Project Social ambassadors with us. So I'm really excited to talk to Caitlin and Jennifer and Oscar and Ryan today. Really excited to kind of hear what they have to say. They're going to share a little bit of their journeys today. So yeah. If you think of anything during this conversation and you want to drop some comments or questions into the chat box below this video, please feel free to send those through and we'll get to them at the end. If you are watching this as a recording later, feel free to still drop those comments or questions in and I can email those out to our ambassadors so that we can get some feedback and some answers from them, because I know you guys love to hear from them and what they have to say. So I think we're going to kick it off with some introductions. So I'm going to start with Caitlin because she's first on my screen up here. So if you want to give us a little introduction and tell us about yourself.
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Caitlin. I live in Colorado. I am currently getting my master's degree in sociology. I will be starting my second year in that program, which is exciting. In my free time, being that I live in Colorado, I like to be outdoors and go hiking. I like to work out, and I also have a blog I write on, so that's pretty fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Caitlin. Oscar, I'm going to throw it to you next because you're next on my screen.
Hi, I'm Oscar. I'm in the United Kingdom. I'm currently a teaching assistant at a secondary school, working in the special educational needs department. In my spare time, I do a lot of filming and video editing. It's been my hobby for a few years. And when I have the time, and I blog for the NVLD project.
Awesome. Jennifer, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Jennifer. I am from California, and I am an admin, tech, and social media assistant for a nonprofit. And I also am a podcast host for a podcast about NLD.
Very cool. Thank you. And Ryan, last but not least.
Hi guys, I'm Ryan. Born in New Jersey, lived in Pennsylvania my whole life, except for 2 years ago I moved. Now I'm in Florida. What I currently do is I do a lot of things, a lot for individuals with disabilities. Well, my primarily is I'm a teaching assistant at a school for kids with autism. I also work on the same campus as the foundation do after school recreation, and that's my background. That's my degree, recreation and leisure administration. Teach tennis for individuals with autism. So I'm in the disability world and I love it. And I also blog for NVLD. And what I like to do in my free time is anything outdoors related. I'm a big pickleball guy. I've gotten hooked on that. Play tennis, like go to the beach, and watch sports, eat healthy, work out. And that's about myself.
Love that. Thank you, guys. That's awesome. I currently also live in Colorado, close to Caitlin. And Caitlin was at our fundraiser last year, so we got to meet in person. So that was kind of cool as well. But Ryan and I actually moved to Colorado from the Northeast. So I was in New York before this. But very cool. Well, thank you guys for joining. I know that everyone is really excited to kind of hear from y'all. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I sent over a list of questions, but we're going to kind of try to keep this conversational. So I'm going to put a question out there and then feel free to kind of jump in, answer, piggyback off someone else if you want, and just kind of discuss. And then we'll move on to the next one when we feel the time's ready. Sound good?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so our first question that I would love to kind of just talk about, because we've had this ambassador program for about 3 or 4 years now, I feel like. I honestly can't remember, but it has been a couple years. So I would love to know what kind of encouraged you to become an ambassador for the NVLD project, and why is it important to you?
I'll go.
Okay.
To be honest, when I first, I originally at my old school, before I worked at the current one, I wanted to leave. I wasn't really happy there. So I thought, what kind of job can I do? And I thought of NVLD. originally I messaged the NVLD project, and they said, well, we can't work for us, but you can be an ambassador, and that really kind of intrigued me. Just being able, just like a platform dedicated to people with NVLD, I thought was really unique. So I kind of jumped on the opportunity to do that, and I try and blog as much as I can.
Oscar, do you do YouTube as well?
Yeah, I've got
Okay.
I've got like 2 videos up there about NVLD. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. I thought I had seen some of those come across. Awesome. Well, we're glad you reached out. We are a very small organization, so our number of employees is minimal, but we do love having our ambassadors kind of blogging and sharing their stories. And we know that everyone on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter just really loves to kind of read about the successes and what your journeys were like. So who else wants to tell us why they became ambassador?
I was just wanting to know of my mom, who actually found the NVLD project, and she told me to reach out to you guys, see what was out there. I had thoughts of trying to do something, and I never knew what I could do. At first I was like, kind of like, nobody's ever heard of this. What can I really do? I was kind of hesitant and scared, and she was like, oh, there's this organization called the NVLD Project. I've never heard of it, didn't know anything about it. She told me about it, and that's how I became an ambassador. And it's great. This is an awesome organization. I love meeting ambassadors, and just want to spread the message about NVLD.
Awesome. That's great. Anybody else?
You can go next. Yeah, so I have a family friend who also has NVLD, and he is a project social ambassador as well, and he kind of told me about it a little bit. And I was like, oh, I should look into that, because beforehand I had never really met anyone else with NVLD. And so it was a really cool thing when I looked into it. It's a really cool opportunity, and like Samantha said, I ended up flying out to New York with my mom last year from Colorado, and so it's just provided a lot of opportunities, and it's also boosted my blog, which is really cool. And it's just a great way to advocate for others with NVLD as well as myself. It teaches you a lot of skills.
That's amazing.
So for me, I actually found the NVLD project when I started my podcast a few years ago, because I was trying to find some reasonable sources online that I could trust, because sometimes, it's hard to trust sources, especially when NVLD is not well known. And when I found the NVLD project, what I loved about it was that there were blogs on there from other people who have NVLD. And I was like, great, I can use this, even though I don't know anybody else in my life personally who has this other than myself. So that's how I found the NVLD project. And then I wanted to become an ambassador because I wanted to try to give more voice and awareness to NVLD and to try to educate people about it more for those who don't know what it is.
Yeah. Awesome. I actually, oh, go ahead, Ryan.
No, I was just going to say that not a lot of people have heard of it when I mentioned the acronym, the NVLD. So it's kind of hard to explain. I mean, I have to, I'll have them look it up, but I'll try to explain it to them because, because it's just its own category. So it really stands out. So I just wanted to say that it's great that we just need the more awareness, the better.
Yeah,
Ryan,
you and I were on the same page, Ryan, because I was actually going to say, do you know other people with NVLD, and how do you explain it to people when they ask you about it?
Well, I mean, to be honest, Ryan, I'm on the same thing. When I have to explain it, when I tell people, they look at me with a blank look, and you just have to sort of, I know it's hidden. Like, not every person I've told, no one's heard of it.
And
Hmm.
I've had the experience where when I tell people nonverbal learning disability, they're like, "Oh, but you're not nonverbal." And I'm like, "Well, that's not what this is." Like,
I agree with you, Caitlin. Yeah, I think I've had that issue too, where it's like, I am very verbal, like I am very talkative and I probably talk too much, but I try to control that when I'm around other people. And I, you know, try to be like, hey, this is, even if it's invisible, it's real,
Yeah.
right?
and
Right.
I have a friend who at school that also has nonverbal. She is like very talkative and very vocal, and then there's me, and I'm kind of introverted. So it's kind of cool to see the different like personalities of people with NVLD too, because it presents differently for everybody.
I agree, Caitlin. Not everybody is the same. So you can't just, we all have it, but it's everybody comes in different forms. So like when you're explaining it, it's like that's the key. Like this is what I have, but I still have this, but they have that. It's like hard to explain.
Okay, so tell me, how do you guys like pretend like I don't know what NVLD is and tell me how you try to explain it to people? I would love to hear, because like as an organization, we have our elevator pitch, which is what we try to explain it to, but it took an entire web page to really outline what NVLD is. So it's not like something you can really sum up in a sentence, but I would love to hear how you guys kind of share what that diagnosis means to you. Everybody's like, absolutely.
I would say for me, I have a harder time reading people socially, especially with like nonverbal cues. I also have a hard time like confidence wise, and like in social situations I get very overwhelmed. Um I also have issues with like my organizing and everything else. So like executive functioning areas are very hard for me. That's kind of how I explain it to people, but yeah, it's different for everyone.
For me, I would have to say that I have some organizational issues or things I'm working on, but I don't want to call them issues. Um, for me, the executive functioning was a big one too. A lot of like the life skills, how to like balance things. I have a tendency to I don't have OCD, but like when I get into something, I'll just go full force and then I'll just like back out. Like when I'm like reading a book, I I can't sit still for a certain amount of time. Like I'll be invested in something, or I'll see something I want to go to, or like an event, and I'll kind of be like all over the place. I just want it. And when I get something, that's why I've had a lot of jobs over the years. I just get bored of them. And I mean, I'm finally now in a field that I'm good at and I like and I enjoy. But for me, it's like my mind always keeps changing. Like I want, and I think that it's like like a drug. You want it, you need it, and then the next thing will make you happy. So that's for me. I think just as like realizing, who I am, what I am. Also, I used to be scared of talking on the phone, picking up the phone. I used to just use the instant messenger all day. Or like if somebody doesn't get back to me within like a couple days, like text or a call or an email, I'll get really like I'll just get like my anxiety will be through the roof. So that's just for me, that's what I tell people, that you just need to give me like more processing time. It takes me longer. I just need to like get more organized. Like I have like calendars, I write things down. And I've learned like through my job, a lot of patience and time and waiting. And like, I'm very, I need to know what's going on for the next 3 weekends or for like the whole month. So I'm a planner, but if people aren't a planner, I got to adapt to it. So that's what I learned about myself. And that's what I would tell people about how I explain my NVLD.
Very cool.
I think for me it's kind of just like the simple things kind of in life. So just as a quick example, there's a place here in the UK called Cornwall, which is a seaside town, and you can drive there, you can go by train. So I usually go by train, but even though I've been doing it for years, I still have to sort of do like a mental checklist. It's like, you know, step one, get to the train station, great, done that, done. Step two, get food for the ride, great. You know, and it's not until I get to the place I'm staying at that it's like, okay, done, relax now. But it's kind of like that with any sort of travel that I do, except for, you know, work, because I can walk there. But it's really for any sort of travel, it's just always sort of some sort of checklist. Even though I've been to a lot of these places many a time, it's still, you know, just tick it off on a list sort of thing.
I get that. It was that way for me when I flew to New York with my mom.
Yeah.
And of
She-
all places, New York, it's not an
Yeah.
easy place to get around.
Yeah. We like I instantly like picked up the subway after the first time, which was really nice, but it was really stressful, like with all the people and stuff. Like, and coming from Colorado, like everything is so spaced out, compared to New York City, where there's millions of people just walking on the street constantly. So I definitely get that. Like, I always have to have a packing list when I go somewhere. Yeah, it's a whole process. Even like at our airport here in Colorado, like it's a whole thing. And the airport is the part that scares me.
Airports are the worst.
Yeah,
Denver
I
airport's the worst.
I was gonna chime in a little bit. For myself, I've known about my NVLD diagnosis since I was in college, which was a few years ago. And I think for me, usually I don't give the name of it first. I try to give like the array of challenges that I have, which are definitely social, like some of you guys have mentioned, and definitely math for me. And trying to drive is not easy as well. And so for me, because I'm in Southern California, I can't use public transportation to get anywhere, unlike NorCal. So you have to be able to drive, and you have to be able to know how to do that pretty well. And even though I've gone to a place many times like you, Oscar, I have to go through my mind mentally, like, okay, am I going to take the right exit? Am I going to go the right way? If there's a fork
Yeah.
with that exit, I'm
Yeah.
like, so I also have my own ways of making sure that I don't get lost when I go somewhere.
I get that too.
Okay, so let's flip it. We've been talking about like what you struggle with and the things that like kind of define like what your deficits are, which is great because that is like when you're explaining it to someone, that's like the first thing you go to. I want to know what your strengths are. So how is NVLD like, what superpowers has it given you? Because in talking with our ambassadors over the last 4 years, I've noticed some trends and like hobbies and strengths and that kind of stuff. And so I'd love to know like, what do you think is, I want to say special, but that kind of sounds like weird, but like what strengths do you have because of your NVLD? Like, what do you feel like you excel at because of it or in spite of it?
Okay, I'll answer this one. I feel like it just like makes me like, it drives me harder to work in the work I do with the individuals, primarily I work with individuals with autism, but just really more have like a compassion. So I really have that drive. Not that everybody else doesn't have the drive. I'm like in overdrive. I feel like I'm always going and like I'm giving, and the parents really appreciate me, and it's just like I have a gift. So that's what makes me strong in the sense of like working with and just having like compassion with people, just like understanding.
I love that. That's great.
I have a similar experience. At my college, I work in our inclusive higher ed program, so I work with other students with disabilities, and I definitely think me with my NVLD, like I can understand and empathize with the students I work with, which is really cool because I know what it's like to have a disability and what they go through every day. And so it's kind of nice to be side by side with them, working with them, being like, hey, like if you don't go to class, like that's bad, you know, I've done that and it's not good. Um, so I think it's definitely given me the ability to empathize with people, which for the most part is a very good thing. Sometimes it's, you know, a challenge because having empathy means you feel for others and um but I think that's probably one of my strong suits from having NVLD.
I think for me, one of my strong suits is I'm really fast at learning things. And so, which is good because for my job, I do a lot of work with tech and I need to be able to learn things quickly because the tech world updates so quickly. And so being able to learn quickly and also have pretty good root memory where I can go through routine like a couple times and I know it by heart already without having to write down um, how to do it. And that's weird because I have to have steps for driving, but I don't have to have it for tech. So I think maybe there's just something more fluid and easy about that than driving. I don't know.
Oh God, I really kind of like struggle like talking about it. I think, you know what, working in a school, like, and working with students who have anxiety and all these other sort of problems, I think it helps in the fact that, you know, I'm able to, I have that sort of empathy for them and I can understand them. And, you know, there was a situation a few weeks ago where I was asked to be with a student who was having some sort of anxiety and I was able to calm them down. And I think that's probably like a strong suit, yeah.
It's amazing. I love to hear that. I like that working with others and kind of empathizing and really helping them in their struggles is a great strength just because, you know, if you are working with someone that relates to you and has kind of been through what you've been through, it makes that other person, the people you guys are helping, just feel much more understood and part of like, you know, a group and have a community and that kind of stuff. Because I know that in the NVLD community, a lot of people feel isolated and like no one understands them. And it does, you know, it's hard. No one, I don't want to say no one because a lot of people know what NVLD is now, but you know, it is hard. It's a struggle if no one really can understand what you're going through and how you feel. So they're all very lucky to have you guys in their lives. So very cool. Pulling my questions back up. Okay, let's this one kind of goes back to what we started with, but outside of like telling people what NVLD is, like what do you wish that they understood about it? So like we know that they don't understand what it is, but for you personally, what do you wish that people understood about you so that they could just like get to know you better? Does that make sense? Kind of similar to what we talked about earlier.
There was a video done, I think her name was Abby. She did a video and she did a quote which I really relate to. And she was like, the one thing I wish people knew about NVLD is that we don't really mean to not understand what you're saying. And I think that's kind of what you know, if people, you know, when people learn about NVLD and they try and understand it, I think the one thing I hope for, like, they just understand, like, we don't mean to misunderstand or misread, or because I sometimes have to ask staff members 2 or 3 times just to double check, and they don't get annoyed, but you know, some other workplace it might happen. So I think that's the one thing I hope, just I hope people understand, like, it's not a deliberate thing on our end.
I'm going to share that video really quick. I just put it in our Zoom tab, but I meant to put it on Facebook. So I'm going to share that video that Oscar is talking about. If you're watching and want to take a look at that YouTube video later.
I think one thing for me is I'm also having a really hard time with like this with others because I tend to talk over people sometimes, and it definitely makes conversations hard. Like I get really excited to like say something, and so I have to like stop myself sometimes. And then also I forgot what else I was going to say, but just that it takes me more time to like warm up and kind of get going. Once I'm like warmed up and in a social situation and more comfortable, then I thrive. But before that, like it takes me more time to get used to the situation and the setting and everything.
I would say that Caitlin, I'm right with you. I'm the same way. As I mentioned before, I was scared of talking on the phone. That has gotten better. I still prefer text message. Kind of steering away off the Facebook Instant Messenger because I felt like that was like I was hiding, and that's kind of was like hiding behind in the Facebook. Nothing wrong with Facebook. I know we're on Facebook. Just I feel that it's hard for me in new, especially me moving down here 2 years ago. I did not know anybody. I had tried several different groups. I'm still trying groups. Gotten better. I made some friends, but it's still taking me some time because I'm still trying to figure out the right people. Do they really like me? Are they my true friends? Are they acquaintances? See, for me, I think that I want to be friends with everybody. And the thing is, that's a hard thing. I noticed with me with my NVLD, that has in the past, I don't want to go back to the past, but it has gotten me in trouble. Like people have taken advantage of me. It hasn't happened in a while, but it's just that my parents are always scared and worried that it could happen still. So that's why I'm very like careful now of who I talk to, what kind of groups. I'm just very careful of that because I don't want that stuff to happen again. I mean, it could still happen, but it's just I want people to be more aware of and this is the hard part too. Do you reveal it up front or do you wait? And when do you wait? And it's hard for me I don't know it sometimes. Like same thing with like an interview or with like a date, or it's just like every situation is different.
Yeah, I can relate to that, Ryan, where if I'm making a new friend or even if I know somebody for a long time, I hesitate to reveal something about NVLD. And I would say that's true also in other social situations where I work with people at my nonprofit or at dating. It's like, do I tell them about this or do I wait until I know them a little bit better? And usually I wait a little bit and I see if I can trust them because I don't want them to be getting the wrong impression about NLD and being able to know that there's a saying, and this applies to all neurodivergents actually, when you've met one neurodivergent, you've only met one neurodivergent, which I think some of us said that earlier, where we're all unique and we're all different. We all experience the challenges that we have to different degrees.
Very cool. So I actually, while I was popping that video into our chat, was just looking through to see if we had any questions coming through. We've got a bunch of people that can't listen in right now, so they will be watching this later, so they might have some comments and questions about that. One lady said that her daughter's in college and math tutoring, and when they shared her NVLD diagnosis with the tutor, a super local teacher. She said she'd never heard of that. So even at the college level, when they're working with tutors and people that are in education, and this is something we've been fighting as an organization, is if it's not in that DSM, then they're not teaching it to anybody that's working with students. And so that's a huge barrier. And so that's, why we want to get it in the DSM and stuff. So it's interesting, Carrie, to see your comment there. So yeah, and Carrie, I'm going to share something with you later, if you're still watching, that you could maybe share with that tutor as well. That would be helpful. We've got our educational toolkit on the website that we worked on with Winston Prep, so I can send that over to you as well. But I'm going to kick off. So our last two questions that I sent you guys, I'm kind of looking at and realize they go like really hand in hand. So what advice would you give to someone who's just received that NVLD diagnosis, which kind of goes hand in hand of like, what would you tell your younger self? Like looking back on it, what would you tell people that are just finding out that they have NVLD and trying to understand and just learn more about themselves? Anybody?
I would say like I was 13 when I was diagnosed, so I didn't understand at all what was going on. And my parents primarily like got told the diagnosis and then told me, and I was like, well, what is this? Like, so I would definitely like, no matter what age, like ask questions or make your kid getting diagnosed, like ask questions. Because it's very, I didn't pick up on a lot of it till I was in college, to be honest. And that made it really hard for me throughout high school and middle school. So I would definitely, if I could go back in time, I would be more curious about my diagnosis. Because at the time I was not sure what was going on at all. I would also say like, just don't push yourself over the limit, but kind of challenge yourself to like do new things and get out there, because it makes it very hard otherwise, I feel like.
Great advice.
I got diagnosed at the age of 9. It was mainly I got taken for all sorts of different tests. And at the age of 9, I didn't know what it was. I didn't get it. I don't think I went through secondary school, not really, because they had a teaching assistant by my side, and I didn't really understand why until I would say years 10 and 11, I would think. When I said I didn't understand, it's just like, okay, I've got these people here, and they were great, but it's like, I don't think I fully understood why they were there. And I think if I had to give advice, whether it's to my younger self or to anyone new, it's just, number one, don't be ashamed by it. It's nothing bad. It's part of who you are. And don't let anyone sort of tell you different. Or more importantly, don't let anyone put you down for it, because that's happened to me. Because I made a short film on NVLD, and someone left a comment saying it's not even a real diagnosis. And then, actually, ironically enough, I sent them a link to the NVLD project, and then they never replied.
Thanks for sharing the link.
I got diagnosed in middle school, and my parents basically took control. I didn't know like what it was. It was hard. I didn't understand, even though they explained it to me. And so, if I had to go back in time, I definitely would say, don't be ashamed, like Oscar said, and just get all the resources you can through the NVLD project and get educated about this, because people are going to ask you questions, and don't doubt yourself. Going back to what Caitlin said about confidence, I had no confidence. It took me a while. I'm getting more confident as I'm getting older. So basically in middle school and high school, I wasn't really confident. In college, I got more confident. So as I climbed, but I wanted to get more confidence, just educate yourself and don't be ashamed of who you are. Be proud of it and share, like tell people about it. And it might not be easy at first. You could just link them to the NVLD. And just the more we educate, the more resources you have, the better.
Awesome.
Yeah, to bounce off of what Ryan said, I would agree with that. For myself, like I said earlier, I didn't know about my NVLD diagnosis until college. So I actually, I kind of always had a hunch that I was different from everybody else in my family in high school. And I didn't really realize how much I struggled in academics until I didn't have tutors for every subject that I had in high school and college. So I realized that I needed to follow my hunch and be able to get tested and have more accommodations in college and be able to get the help that I needed. So if I was talking to somebody who had just got a diagnosis, I would definitely congratulate them to have the courage to get that diagnosis and to go through the tests and to let them know that it was good that they spoke out for themselves and that they saw that they needed help and that they wouldn't try to get it.
Amazing. So while you guys were talking about that, because it's come up a lot that like no one knows what it is and you don't know anybody with it. And so I was pulling up, I don't know if you guys saw this, but back in 2020, one of our researchers did a prevalence study of NVLD among children in North American children and adolescents. So I'm going to read this to you really quick. Researchers at Columbia University and Childmind Institute, led by Dr. Amy Margolis, estimate that NVLD occurs in 3 to 4% of children in North America. So that's like actually quite a bit. How do you feel about that? Do you think there's a lot of people that are un or misdiagnosed? And we know that it's true. We've done the research and all that. So not do you believe it's true, but do you see that? Could you believe that to be like a true thing, given your interactions with other people and your experience with NVLD? I just want to kind of see what you guys think about that, because that's a pretty high prevalence rate.
I believe it because I mean, I can kind of sense when I talk with some people that if they might have like even like NVLD or something, like I can kind of tell. So I believe that people could go misdiagnosed, even like, but then with my friend, like I didn't know until she told me, probably because I have it and it, and it's just normalized in my world. But I believe it.
Was anyone misdiagnosed first before they received an NVLD diagnosis? Were you told you had something else?
Some doctors thought like I had dyspraxia or I was on the autism spectrum. So it took I went through quite a few people to get the diagnosis.
Okay, cool. I don't know if we've talked about that before, so just kind of curious.
I do believe. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I do believe, like Caitlin said, I do think that people I can tell some people might have NVLD. It's just I'm not a doctor to diagnose them, so I know, but I can see some of the same things in me.
And others.
But people are just and others, and some people might just just don't want to get tested, don't want to go through the whole process because it's not a fun process, as we know. So that's what I believe. I think the numbers, like you said, are rising, but it's just hard because they could have other things going on too. And that's the hard part.
I like how you said they can have other things going on because I was born with a head injury, so that made it more complicated for my diagnosis because doctors were like, "Well, is this just from the TBI at birth or is it something else?" And they figured out, it's kind of a combination. So I like that you said like you can have coexisting things too with it, which is interesting.
Pretty common too. I think we've got numbers for that somewhere, but I have no idea where it is. But yeah, comorbidity.
Yeah,
Pretty
because I feel like I have NVLD, but I also feel like I have ADD, ADHD. So I feel like I have more than what I have. I mean, that's what they tested me for, but I could have other stuff, I mean, I'm not getting tested for all that stuff, but I could have other stuff. So I don't know, but I'm proud of who I am and where I be. That's what my parents are like. Well, look how far you came and your accomplishments, and you should be proud of who you are. So that's what I try to hold on to every day. That's why I am being an ambassador. Like I want to just spread this message like everybody else does on here.
Yeah, I'm gonna play off what Ryan and Caitlin said about the comorbidity. I don't only have NVLD, I also have chronic migraines. So it's not a learning disability, but definitely feels like it's another impairment. And for me, it's actually interesting. I know of some other individuals through my podcast who are similar to me, and they basically for us, it's challenging getting through every day, and with chronic pain like that, and trying to figure out how to do work. But because I have a flexible job, that makes it easier, and being able to do that, and also with a statistic that you mentioned, I'm a little hesitant to believe it because I've done an episode on misdiagnosis and underdiagnosis on my podcast, and also it being on the DSM and then not being on the DSM, because there's no clear definition out there about NLD. I don't know if that percentage is quite accurate. I think there might be more people who have it than are out there.
Okay. We actually did define it. So we submitted to the DSM. I don't know if everybody saw that, but we have a definition that's been submitted to the DSM, and they're still working through some of that feedback and defining it more and that kind of stuff. So hopefully there will eventually be in the DSM a definition and diagnosis to make it easier to diagnose across the board with the same criteria and testing and that kind of stuff. So awesome. We do have one more question in our chat. And so we're going to end with this question. And it's from Carrie again. She wants to know if anyone has done occupational therapy. No.
I did when I was really little, but
Do you remember much about it?
I know I did a lot of typing. I had issues with typing and writing.
Okay.
So they
I
helped.
did. Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say, yeah, when I was little, I had problems holding my pencil and pen, and also some with the keyboard, getting the keys down and tying my shoe, and like functional motor skills.
Do you feel like it helped? Or do you remember much if it
I
helped?
don't really remember that much.
I would say OT. I had trouble tying my shoes as well, and OT actually helped me learn how to tie my shoes when I was in 5th grade.
There you go. All right, Carrie. So not too much experience here, but if you're watching and you have gone through occupational therapy and you want to answer Carrie's question, I'm sure she would appreciate any feedback. So Jennifer, were you going to say something? I feel like I might have cut you off.
Yeah, it's okay. I was just going to say the closest thing I had to occupational therapy was speech therapy, where I had some challenges with some of the blends when I was learning how to talk. And so I had that for a few years and that was helpful for me. But other than that, I think the only thing I might have had that was kind of like occupational was my parents noticed that I couldn't hold a pencil that was normal size, so they got me bigger ones. So that might have been a little bit of that just from them.
Yeah, interesting. I'm actually seeing more comments coming through now. We actually have another ambassador in the chat, and he would like to know if any of you also struggle with mental exhaustion. Like, do you
Yeah.
get mentally exhausted easily? There you
Yeah.
go, Brian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian, I think that they agree with you. So do you want to share a little bit about that, or is it something that you've like noticed? Do you have any kind of ways that you cope with that or anything?
For me, I mean, from January, I'd say till April of this year, it was quite bad. Um, uh, it was just, you know, I'd go to work and it's just like everything is a struggle. Like every, you know, doing something I love, which is, you know, I love my job. It almost became like a chore just to get up in the morning, just to go to work. Um, I did weekly therapy from January to the end of April. And I don't know if there's anything in particular that I did to sort of help other than I guess take myself off to therapy, but you know, it's I think just like self-care, like just take care of yourself mentally. And if you, I guess with that, if you need help, take it, you know, search for it.
I like that. I also have had issues with mental health and stuff. So I like to say I have a social meter for even mental health and like social. So if that meter goes overboard, I know I need to like come like home and relax and just take some me time, self-care. Um and if I have like a really bad day, like talk to someone or something, talking to people, talking it out really helps me. And it, yeah, lots of therapy as well. But not everybody wants to take that route. So just talking to someone that you care about or that cares about you is definitely really helpful.
I know I'm very hard on myself because I'm always want like a status. I get very jealous of a lot of people. That gives me a lot of anxiety, and they're like, well, people are like, why you want to work so much? Because I care and I love my job. But then I kind of like taking away from socializing when people invite me to events. So I kind of hide and I work and I kind of make up an excuse as, even though I sometimes say I work, I'll make up an excuse for not going to a certain social event. I've gotten better over the years, had a lot of therapists, but obviously, like Caitlin said, it doesn't work for everybody. So I would just say that self-care, I do enjoy doing working out, and just talking to people that like care about me, family members or friends that really understand who I am, I would say.
Yeah, I would definitely bounce off of what Ryan and Caitlin said. I also try to have a good amount of self-care for myself, and I have done and I'm still doing it 8 years of therapy. So definitely it isn't for everybody, but it is helpful. And um, for me, my mental exhaustion I think is mostly from my migraines, but definitely from NLD as well in terms of constantly having to check myself. Am I being appropriate in the social situation? Did I do something wrong or not normal in quotes? And trying to have that be not something that I beat myself up about is challenging as well. And I think also for me, my other outlet that I do other than podcasting is running. So I like to do a lot of long distance running, and that is definitely something I enjoy doing.
Okay, cool. While they were talking, I dropped a link in the chat for those that may not know about it, but we do have an online support community. There's a link to it on our website, and I went ahead and put it in the comments. I do want to preface that it's not managed or regulated by the NVLD project. It's through a company and an organization called Inspire. But there are about 1,000 members in the NVLD community in Inspire. So if you are looking for a connection, or you've got questions you want to ask, or you want to talk to other parents or other people with NVLD, feel free to check that link out. You don't have to post, but you can sign up and at least see what people are talking about in there if you are looking for a place to connect with others that are in the NVLD community. So just wanted to let y'all know that that was in the comments. We are hitting about the hour mark, so it's quite a long video for people to watch, but this was really great. I think you guys have a lot of amazing insight, a lot of good feedback and just advice, and seeing your success stories of where you're at in life, and hearing how you're helping others within the NVLD community is truly inspiring. So we are going to wrap up. I'm going to end the Facebook Live, but if my ambassadors will stay on Zoom for just a couple minutes, I just want to wrap up with you guys. Thank you all for joining us. If you are out there watching, if you are coming to the end of the video, but you weren't watching live, like I said at the beginning, please feel free to drop any comments or questions into the comment section below, and I can send those in an email to our ambassadors if they're not already looking at the page. So we will see you all next time on our Facebook Live.